guilty of crime.
All right, let's hope this works. Can you guys hear me? It sounds a little funny to me. I'm Jay with Guilty of Crime, and you gotta let me know if it's echoing, because I think I need to change it. I redid my computer and things weren't working properly. Hello, hello. You can hear me? Okay. All right. Well, do me a favor. Hit that like button if you like how I present true crime. Subscribe if you haven't. Moto Man MX. Now, I haven't seen you here, so if you're new, do me a favor and subscribe. Hit the notifications. I gotta say, the Idaho 4 Bryan Kohberger case, I felt like it was going to be like Delphi at first, but there's a lot of twists and turns in this case. And I'm going to get into them today because the initial appearance of this case and how it started isn't so much what it seems. Now, if they would have went to trial already, let's say there would have been a waive a speedy trial or go with the speedy trial and get it going. I don't think we would have gotten this far in the way we did, but I know we have to go through lots of lots of documents, not documents. They've got terabytes of information. So we're going to start talking about that today. It's a big case, but I'm going to start with just an introduction of the basics. And if you guys know the case or you don't, I'll catch you up, and then we'll talk about what's happening now, because it's been years, you guys. I'm going to say hello to everybody as they roll in. I normally do 4 o'clock, and I wanted to get this going before then because it's Friday, and Reese will say, Mom, come pick me up when I might not be done. Good to see everybody. Good to see you guys. I'm glad you guys are here. Yesterday was a busy day, and I did gift memberships, though. If you guys came into chat yesterday just to check it out, I gifted 5 memberships, so I hope somebody got memberships that wanted them. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I got to tell you, this case of Bryan Kohberger is one that reminds me, and I'll say this because I'm going to tell you that Bryan Kohberger, my initial thoughts were Ted Bundy. Okay, and the reason I say Ted Bundy, because it takes me back to the college murders that took place right before he got caught for the little girl that he got caught with. He went in and he didn't take all 4 lives, but he attacked 4 females. Some of them died, some of them didn't. It was brutal, but it was him all by himself. So many people come in and say, there's no way he could have done this by himself. Yeah, there is a way he could have done this by himself. And as a matter of fact, when I first started this case, I thought that I was like, well, this guy had to have did it. He's evil. Look at all these things. You got touch DNA. It's a done deal. The guy's sitting there with gloves at his parents' house. But things change a little bit. Things are changing a little bit, and I'm not sure why. Yes, Leah, Ted Bundy, that's what got him on death row, actually was the little girl that was 12. I think that was his youngest victim. But when he went over to the sorority house and he raped and attacked 4 women, I think he took the lives of 2. I know one of them survived, but it was 4 women. Everybody says one person can't do that alone. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. And I've gone over this case again and again. Would it have changed my mind if I wouldn't have heard what I did now? Maybe. And when I tell you what I'm talking about, and I tell you the latest evidence, I'm like, what? There's no fucking way. No way. Yeah, he was also. That's another thing. There's another thing is that he was studying serial killers like Ted Bundy. Okay, let me just tell you a couple things off the top of my head. So I know he was studying serial killers like Ted Bundy. He was in a class that he could commit the perfect crime and cover it up, right? He was stalking the girls supposedly. He was out that night. We saw his white Elantra, but then what happens? The case gets smaller and smaller, and they're saying that he didn't have. Wait, what? They're saying he wasn't stalking them, but their initial evidence right off the bat showed that he was. So this case is getting crazy. If I were to say right now today if he did it or not without showing you what I'm going to show you today, I'd absolutely say that he did it. And many people say don't put much weight into it because anyone saw my search history, it would be bad. Now, I'm not even going to talk about the search history of security. I'm talking about his demeanor. I'm talking about him getting fired for treating women in a weird way, him creeping out his last Tinder date, him driving across country and trying to create some weird alibi, and then them finding him in gloves at their parents' house, and the parents saying he's creepy. Like, everything stacks up. But then I see this case that comes out that he's not tied to it. The body cam that was recently released that Plunder came out with and all these other people, and it wasn't him. The description said 5'3". She fought the attacker off, and they said it wasn't him. So I'm like, wait, what? How coincidental can that be? And then I look back to Scott Peterson, and he's on death row. He might get another shot for exactly what just happened in the body cam and the case of people blaming somebody else other than Kohberger because he was cleared. How does that happen, you guys? Ashley, thank you so much. Thank God it's Friday. Choo choo. I appreciate you guys so much for donating to the channel. Lord knows I can use it right now. It's going to be crazy. But things will get better soon. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. If you guys do have the means to super chat, super sticker, or get yourself a membership. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to pull up this. I'm not going to just talk and have you look at me. I'm going to pull up this nice slideshow here, and I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to do this while I'm talking, and then we're going to get into a couple little clips. If you guys don't know the case at all, which I'm sure that you do, we talk about and we give voices to those that don't have them. All right. So Idaho 4 refers to Bryan Kohberger case. It was a home invasion that claimed 4 lives. And I got to say, November 13, 2022, when I heard about that case, I was heartbroken. I saw those people's, I saw Xana's and Kaylee and Madison, and how cute they were, and Ethan. And I was like, they didn't even start their life, and their life was brutally taken while they were sleeping. All right. So let's say a quick prayer, no matter who did this or what you think by the end of this episode, for Madison Mogen, who was 21, Kaylee Goncalves, that was 21, Xana Kernodle, 20, and Ethan Chapin, 20. All their lives were taken while they were on their campus home at King Street, which was about a mile from the University of Idaho campus where all the victims were attending class. Throat slit, eyelids cut off, pieces cut, and a very, very sharp T-bar knife to boot. Okay, so let's just let's agree that we all want them to rest in peace. They were so young, and that could be any of your children, whether they're in college or whether they're grown up. That could have been. And I have a son that's still in college. I have a daughter that's going to go to college eventually. All right, so I'm going to talk about some things and then I'll show some clips. Let me put this slideshow on so you're not just listening to me the whole time without being able to see these people and what happened in the case. All right, so let's get to it. I'm going to give you guys some of the basic rundowns of it, and then I'm going to play some clips. All right, so if you guys look at Bryan Kohberger there and you think that he's innocent, then hey, let's agree to disagree. I've changed a little bit of my thought process since I dove into this case, but I have been following this case, and I'm gonna tell you, my 90% in my heart of hearts tells me that Bryan Kohberger did this, and if he gets off on a technicality, I'm gonna be very disappointed. And if he gets off on not a technicality, a big piece of evidence that should have gotten through and they can't prove it now, I'm going to be very upset. All right. So I feel like this case needs to hurry up and come so we stop. Krista, thank you. Krista thinks he's innocent. Oh, you don't think he's innocent. Okay. There are people that think he's the patsy, that they're just making him be the guy. And now with this new body cam where he was cleared, my God, they're going to use that for their defense, you guys. They sure as heck are. PC cases by Idaho law, for it to be stalking, the victim must have fear or injury of death. If they were unaware, then no stalking. Okay, so there's a technicality that we're going to talk about then, because this is a brutal crime, and I believe Bryan Kohberger's a monster. But when I start digging into the evidence that jurors are going to see, I'm like, dang, this can't be. It can't be. All right. So look at these pictures while I get you up to date. All right. So this happened November 13th, 2022. We're in 2025 here, and we've had some motions and some evidence change, some motions change things. Bryan's been moved. The judge has been changed. All right, so let's talk about that and get up to speed. All right, so Bryan's defense asked for the case to be moved from Moscow to Idaho, which is the state capital, Boise, Idaho, which was approved and signed off on by Judge. Okay, so they moved. Of course, that's a strategy, probably so jurors can give him a fair trial. Now, Bryan has been moved and is currently sitting in the Ada County Jail. Judge is no longer the case. Sorry, people, if you like Judge. There's a new judge in town, and it's interesting because Judge Stephen Hippler doesn't have any death penalty experience. All right, so Judge grants Kohberger a change of venue to the University of Idaho for the University of Idaho trial to be in a different place to get a fair trial. Welcome, everybody. Yes, a change of venue. Don't believe. Yeah. Sadie's mom. What's up, Foxy Amazon? Good to see you. I hope everybody's in good spirits here today. Oh, wow. Thank you. Carlisa Vanaker just sent me a $25 Cash App. I appreciate you greatly. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now, I haven't been doing the Idaho 4, so we have a small chat today, guys. You guys get my attention. Anxiously waiting for the trial to start. This one I will follow closely. Now, I see that knife and I see Bryan with that smug face, and I think, man, I just want to strangle that guy, and I want him to be in prison already and see if he's a tough guy. But then I look at the evidence and I say, Jay, it's guilty. It's innocent until proven guilty, Jay. Deanna Peterson, he's sitting with Chad Daybell. Oh, my God. And that's another case I follow, too. What's up, Shauna Faircloth? Good to see you. Teresa, I'm going to give the California prayer for everybody. Thank you. He seems like an incredible narcissistic piece of shit for me, too. Me too, Wyatt. Me too. All right, let me get you up to speed so I can kind of blow your mind, because my mind's blown at what's happening right now. It's blown away. I'm like, oh, this case is driving me nuts. All right, so we've got a new judge. No more judge, which I thought was funny. He's moved. We're done. We move on, and let's get going. So currently, Bryan's sitting there, and he's scheduled for August 11th, 2025. dead of summer, you guys, with jury selection to begin July 31st, 2025, which is 6 days after my birthday. Now, the trial is scheduled to run all the way through November 7th. Pre-trial, you got the jury trial pick, and that usually takes about a week, and then you're off. All right, so let's try to mark our calendar for that, you guys, because if you're not watching this case yet, well, Jay from Guilty of Crime is going to make you watch this case because I'm covering it. Now, there's a hearing scheduled for January 23rd, 2025, you guys. That's in 13 days, less than 2 weeks, to discuss all the things that the defense are trying to challenge the state with in this hearing. Now, I'm going to tell you about all that in just a bit. We're going to go over the 2025 trial that looms, and I'm going to talk about the facts in this case that the state has and what I think the defense is going to be. And I also want to have that conversation. Is this the right guy? If you guys don't think that this is the right guy, let me know in chat, but we'll be respectful. What's up, Bogart? What's up, Leanne? Good to see you guys. You guys, do me a favor, hit the like button. Let's get this in the algorithm so people know that Guilty of Crime is covering the Idaho 4 case. And this is right up my alley, you guys. I got to tell you, I started my channel based on serial killers. I have been studying serial killers and their crimes since I was probably 10 years old. I know that sounds morbid, but Jeffrey Dahmer came in. I lived in the area where Richard, the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez was, and I just serial killers fascinate me. And I see this guy, and I don't think this was a first crime he's committed, you guys. Proud American. I'm a proud American too. Welcome. Guilty as sin. All right. So I see serial killers. I study them, and I feel like this is a modern day serial killer. I don't feel like this is his first crime. But let's not be let's be fair, and let's get through the evidence. Love you, Bogart. Thank you so much. All right. Yeah, he's into Bundy big time. And if you see what Bundy did to those 4 girls, it's still the one that survived the massacre of the sorority house is still punished to this day. As a survivor, she's still tormented by what Ted Bundy, who's been long gone, did to her, you guys. All right. Yeah, I believe that, Wyatt. Let's go with that. I believe he is. But I think he's also creepy. I think he's weird. And I think the chips are stacked against him when I hear that his defense is stargazing on a night that was cloudy. All right. So we're going to get into that. And then I hear more things and I'm like, no, we got to do this. We got to get it. All right. So I'm committed to this. Keep in mind, most things are still under seal, you guys, including the expert and non-expert witnesses. So from the beginning of this case, the motion to seal the information has been submitted, and we've only got bits and pieces of the case, okay? So there's a lot of information that's still missing, and it's making its way into the public. All right, so at the time of the incident, Bryan was 30 years old. You can see this has been almost 3 years now. He was studying for his PhD in criminology at Washington State University, which is less than 10 miles from the home in Idaho where the incident happened. Now, Bryan was fired from his teaching job, you guys, as a teaching assistant due to lack of professional and sexism towards female students, as well as many complaints from all students. And that was just days before his arrest, you guys. So as his character, it kind of convicts him. He's weird. He's awkward. People don't like him. He seems like an incel, right? But we need evidence. So even with the seal, the one thing that we all know about Bryan is the state has DNA, you guys, from the night chief. Now, I want to see your comments, what you think about that, because I know people say, Jay, that's bullshit. Touch DNA doesn't mean shit. Who cares, Jay? I care. The moment I heard DNA, you guys, I said, they've got this guy. They've got to get the rest of this evidence. I don't care if it's touch DNA. That touch DNA linked this guy twice. All right. So okay, listen, there would never have been an arrest had they not had that touch DNA to connect him. Now, I don't believe in coincidences, and Maggie Duke, his eyes are creepy AF. But listen up here. Yeah, I think that's enough too. But listen. This touch DNA came from the knife sheath that was under the victim, that was brutally bloody and cut up from that, okay, from that knife. So, in my opinion, that's a big factor. Now, take this. What they did here, and this came from the Golden State Killer. They took that from the Golden State Killer. They took that DNA and they did the 1, 2, 3andMe, and it matched Bryan's dad, his father in Pennsylvania. It came back and they caught that mother trucker, Bryan Kohberger. All right. But we're going to go a step further because they took his DNA swab by his cheek. And guess what? Time number 2, it matched. All right. So we know that the defense claims that Bryan was out on his white Elantra driving alone when for many nights, that's what he'd do to clear his head, is take long drives by himself and stargaze. And that's what he says he did on the night. However, when you look at the weather reports, it was allegedly very cloudy that night and you couldn't see the stars. Keep in mind, when they arrested Bryan, he was acting creepy and had gloves on in his parents' house collecting his DNA, collecting napkins, collecting things, because he didn't want the officers to get a swab directly from him, you guys. Okay? Thank you so much, Snee, for the Guilty of Crime membership. Okay, now, I gotta tell you, what about him on the video following the girls? That's what I'm saying too, but it's gonna blow your mind when I tell you that they're throwing that out as stalking. I have all of that, and I'm gonna get to all that. And stargazing was the thing that he did. And what about his Elantra that we saw in those videos from the night of him turning around? And what about his cell phone pings that showed him go there multiple times and then the same morning again, you guys, after he took their life? What about that? What about the geofencing, Foxy? Right, that's what I'm saying. You guys are going to be mind blown then when I get to the next part. All right, so all this evidence stacking up, you guys. Bryan's defense has done their best to try to challenge all the evidence the state has against Kohberger in an attempt to have the DNA thrown out, you guys. All right. So the prosecution says that he was stalking the victims the night that he took their lives. They say he went back to the house several times before the murders took place. Now, the defense say that's not true and it needs to be thrown out. The defense also asked Bryan's genetic information, which they argue was obtained illegally, you guys. So they're saying it needs to be suppressed. They're challenging the contents of his digital history on Amazon, Google, Apple, and iCloud, as well as his AT&T and phone accounts, plus the items that were found in his car. You guys, you know what we'll do to that case if the jury comes in and doesn't get that evidence? Yes, this is shiesty shit, you guys. And I have a whole video we're going to go over it with you. It came out 3 days ago. That's going to get us ready for the trial. So stick around, hit the like button, let people know that I'm covering this case and it's my forte. It's right up my alley. All right. Now, Idaho has the death penalty, Foxy, Amazon. And can I tell you what? They're looking at coming back with a firing squad. Now, I've already looked into this and I saw that they have plans out there to rebuild the firing squad, let's say, station. And it's going to cost them $700,000. They have the permits for it. They've got that typical wall. They've got 4 guys with a hoodie on. All of them will shoot blanks except for one of them. And the firing squad, if he gets the death penalty, he's looking at the firing squad, and they are rebuilding it right now. I've definitely looked at that. They shouldn't have destroyed the house until the case is over, but I don't know how much that's going to help anyway, since they're trying to throw a lot of other evidence out. Leanne says, I went to the site of the attack and my steady sensing was screaming, Jay, it's him. My sixth sense and just my common sense says it's him. But you got to see what the defense is pulling, you guys. The defense is trying to pull one here. and let an evil man walk on the streets. All right. So if you don't remember, not only did they find where allegedly they believe Bryan's cell phone was pinging on the towers that he had been stalking the girls, but they also that he drove back that night and the following morning. They're trying to pull that out, you guys. So it's been assumed that the other two unnamed roommates, including one suspect, now this is his defense. He's trying to say that the other roommates, they're trying to build a case that there was a bunch of drug activity in that house and that it was a drug. So they don't have that as they didn't put that in as a alibi, but they're building this story to say there was drug activity, people in and out of that house. But back when the incident happened, it was said that two of the surviving roommates were actually selling substances out of the house, but these are just rumors floating around. So, with that being said, many were thinking the substances being sold out of the house by the roommates was a drug deal gone bad. All right. So it's coming back. It's gotten leaked out. It's gone into mainstream media where people are saying Bryan didn't do it. So they're trying to get expert witnesses and witnesses, which we don't know yet. Now, there's a non-expert witness who might potentially say that the King Road house had drug activity going on, but after the autopsies were released, you guys, they were completed and there were no drugs found in any of the victims' systems. So how do you explain that? How do you explain that? Yeah, Gringa, I'm glad. I love my guilty of crime team. You guys, big hug from over here. Big hug. Because I'm passionate about this case. And those girls, it breaks my heart. And Ethan. I swear, if I ever cry about a case, it will be this one. Like it really, I see my daughter, I see Reese going off to college, going and getting her ride and saying, it's my last day with my homies. I'm doing good. I got my job of my dreams, and then this happening. It really breaks my heart, you guys. Don't even make me cry right now because it hurts my soul. What he did to these girls and Ethan, like they're just all right, let's keep going. Yeah, hugs to everybody because their parents and the family, it breaks my heart. It really does. All right. Now, check this out. So the defense is pulling a hard one. I got to admit, Ann Taylor's doing a good job, you guys. She's doing a real good job. Okay. So now Scott Peterson is getting a second chance, possibly. And I'm talking about Scott Peterson because he's getting a second chance at a trial if the DNA from that van, if you guys know that the case, he's convicted for killing his wife, pregnant wife, in that neighborhood that night or the night before, the same day. There were burglars that broke into a house, that were breaking into houses, and they're blaming them. They have one piece of evidence that they're going to check and see if they can get another trial. Now, that's what the defense is trying to do here by getting these items thrown out. And they're also trying to pull a fast one with this, you guys. You remember that home invasion 911 body cam? Have you guys seen that? Has anyone seen that? All right, there's some body cam. I should put it up there real quick. I don't want to play the whole thing because it's not even him, but there's body cam footage, you guys, and a little bit of it. Hold on. There's body cam footage, and it's not him, and they're going to bring that into the trial, and they're going to say they tried to pin this on him. It was a different person. She didn't know because she was half asleep. The person that gave the Paula brought it, but it also came out here. Bryan Kohberger investigated for home invasion before the murders. He was cleared. I'm going to show this to you guys real quick. I'm going to show you a quick clip of it. I don't want to show the whole thing, but I want you to know what I'm talking about. Now, this could get him off. This could literally get him off, you guys. If they bring this into trial, if Ann Taylor does what she's supposed to do and she gets this into trial, they can say that this was him that did this. It wasn't him. It was the other person. And one juror is all it takes.
Accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students, but investigators looked at him for another case with eerie similarities.
As soon as I kicked them, they like fell back into the closet and then just like booked it out of my room.
I have the body camera footage and how Kohberger ended up on the radar of police more than a year later. This is a law and crime legal alert. Did you know that children are being
Oh, be
diagnosed
quiet.
of this crime? Shocked the small town of Moscow, Idaho. No one could think of anyone who would want to hurt the 4 students. Kaylee had moved out of the house on King Road and was only back for the weekend to show off her new SUV and to hang out with friends. It would take some time, more than a month, but eventually Bryan Kohberger was arrested and charged with murdering Maddie, Kaylee, Ethan, and Xana. One piece of evidence that investigators said linked Kohberger to the crime, a DNA profile they traced back to him. They found it on the snap of a K-bar knife sheath that was left under Maddie Mogen's body. Police also said that a surviving roommate saw a man wearing all black and a mask with bushy eyebrows walking through the house after she heard the sound of one of the roommates crying. Investigators have said that Kohberger's white Hyundai Elantra was also spotted at the scene of the crime. Kohberger had moved to Pullman, Washington, 10 miles from Moscow in the summer of 2022. Moscow and Pullman are basically one big community.
Yes, and that's why I'm getting you up to date, folks. They told law enforcement that the suspect was 5'3" to 5'5". So all of this went into the police department. Law enforcement looked at it, and Bryan Kohberger has been cleared. Now the attorney wants to bring this in. So let's listen to this for a minute, because I got some other things that are going to blow you away. And you guys seem like you're on my side when it comes to Bryan Kohberger being guilty. And so you're probably going to be a little bit upset. I got a clip with Joseph Scott Morgan, and 3 days ago, everything that's coming up, the things that may help him get off. But I also have things that we know that they have, but they want to try to get thrown out. Kat, thank you so much for the $1.99 super chat. I'm all for justice in this case, you guys.
College towns linked by one road. Kohberger was a PhD student at Washington State University studying criminology. His lawyers have said that he's innocent, and they plan to fight for him at his trial, which is scheduled for August of 2025. Now, shortly after Bryan Kohberger's arrest, police started looking at old cases to see whether Kohberger.
So this is what happened. This is what I'm talking about. And what happens, people say there's no way that this was his first crime. There's no way he was just testing things out. There's no possible way you could commit a almost perfect crime if the sheath wouldn't have got stuck under her body. This was almost a perfect crime, you guys. Leanne, thank you so much. You say we're always on your side. Thank you for the $10 pounds. I appreciate you guys. And you guys don't have to be on my side. I just want good, nice conversations. That's all. I want to make sure we're all respectful with each other. Gringa, and Taylor reminds me of Georgia Kappelman. She does remind me of Georgia Kappelman, who is the who's the prosecutor for the Dan Markel case against the Adelsons. Yeah, she's like a pit bull, you guys, and I do not want her to get him off. I do not want her to get. I will be so upset if he gets off. I hope it's like the Delphile trial where there's just a bunch of nonsense thrown around because people can't wait for the trial. But then when the trial comes, the jurors see right through all the bullshit.
Might be linked. One of those cases was a burglary in Pullman, Washington.
All right, there it is, you guys. If you haven't seen it, I needed you to see this because it's coincidence, and I don't believe in coincidences.
2021, more than a year before the murders in Moscow, some young women living in a house in Pullman called police after one of them said a person with a knife came into her bedroom. A Pullman police officer's body camera recorded her describing exactly what happened.
So I have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
Where did you see this person?
I was asleep, and then I woke up
Okay.
and it was just me and Sadie home at the time, and we both lived down in the basement, and my door was closed. I heard my door open, and I looked over, and someone was wearing a ski mask and had a knife like this.
Oh, okay.
And so I like kicked the out of their stomach and screamed super loud, and they like flew back into my closet and then ran out my door and up the stairs.
Okay, and that's the last you know as they ran up the stairs?
Yeah, and then when they got home, this back door was wide open.
Okay, how long ago did this happen?
Maybe 15, 20 minutes at most.
Okay. And so between the four of you, it's the whole house?
Yeah.
No one else is there?
What this young woman described is terrifying. The officers searched the house to make sure that it was safe and then brought the young woman back in and talked to the victim again. The video is redacted because it was recorded inside the house.
I really could not tell you if it was a guy or a girl.
Oh, okay.
All right, so you know what? I want to get you guys up to speed for what's happening in 2025. What I brought this up for those of you that didn't hear about this or didn't see it, he was cleared of this. Now, every station before he was cleared put this on and was like, Kohberger did it, and then he got cleared. Now, Krista says a witness, what? Slam dunk, I would think. Yes, Krista, until he got cleared of this, and if they bring this in, they can get one juror, and if they get the evidence dismissed that I'm going to talk to you about in a bit, they can get it pulled. So I'm going to pull this one. I'm going to do a quick clip of the Idaho murder timeline. Investigators say the phone evidence, which is one of the strongest pieces of evidence, might get pulled. So I'm going to play this quick clip for you. Say that fast 3 times. All right, check this out, y'all.
Out of the affidavit in the University of Idaho stabbings. Now we are learning through evidence that the accused killer returned to the scene of the crime.
Fox 13's Matthew Smith joins us now with those fresh new details. Matt?
So this affidavit, only unredacted document that we've gotten so far from the judge in this case. The only thing that's public, really. Its 18 pages are full of unsettling new details, and among the most jarring, the fact that police believe Bryan Kohberger, the suspect, returned to the house hours after the murders took place. Now, investigators pieced that information together by tracking Kohberger's cell phone data. They were able to map his movements over several months by pinging which towers his cell phone was connecting with. Now, overnight on November 13th, when Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogen, and Kaylee Goncalves were killed, data shows that Kohberger's phone was leaving his apartment in Pullman around 2:50 in the morning. But almost immediately, the phone cuts off from cell phone service. Investigators think that was a deliberate move by him to not be caught. But security cameras pick up a white Hyundai Elantra, just like his, driving up to the victim's home around 4 a.m. The cell phone reconnects to service around 4:50 that morning. At that point, it's traveling just south of Moscow when it returns to Kohberger's apartment. Now, fast forward to 9 a.m., the phone's in motion once again, but this time it stays on for the entire trip. And cell phone data positions it near the scene of the crime for a short while later. At 9:12, police believe Kohberger was lingering in that area for at least 10 minutes. The affidavit doesn't say what exactly he would have been doing, but he likely wouldn't have been disturbed. And we know that because it would be several more hours before police arrived at the home. Now, retired Seattle police homicide detective Cloyd Steger says that this move fits with the profile of somebody who thinks they're simply too smart to get caught.
He is a narcissist, and he is, I don't know enough to know about him if he's a sociopath or a psychopath. But yeah, the boy ain't right.
Now, one of the other things
that stands out,
Kohberger just went about his life. In fact, we know he was at an Albertsons grocery store near Clarkston, Washington, around 12:45 in the afternoon that day. Security cameras don't pick up any obvious injuries or peculiar behavior. He just continued about his business, shopping, paying for items, and taking off. It's also worth noting that Kohberger says he believes he will be exonerated in the end of all this. He's due back in court January 12th. Hannah?
All right, so what I'm going to do, and they say January 12th, but it's not right now. We're on the 10th. It's going to be the 23rd because things get pushed out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fast forward you to the last hearing, and then we're going to go to 2025 trial that's looming, and we're going to talk about the evidence that they want suppressed, that they want kicked out, that they don't think should be in the trial. And if it's not in the trial, you guys, I don't see how we would get a guilty verdict with that because those are the strongest pieces of evidence. All right, let's do this real quick. Another 2-minute clip, and then we're going to get into it with my passionate thoughts on it. I think he's an incel. I think he's evil.
Accused of stabbing 4 University of Idaho students to death is trying to get key evidence in the case thrown out. NBC's Dana Griffin is here to explain. Dana, good morning.
Joe, good morning. In a lengthy new motion, Bryan Kohberger's defense team now hoping to keep without the most critical evidence to the prosecution's case, including the DNA evidence that allegedly links him to the crime, as well as his digital footprint. His lawyers say Kohberger's constitutional rights were violated when police used DNA evidence they say was obtained illegally from garbage outside Kohberger's parents' home in Pennsylvania a month after the murders, and said there was a genetic match to the single source of male DNA found on that knife sheath left at the crime scene. Now, the suppression brief arguing that without that DNA, there is no case, no request for his phone records, surveillance of his parents' home, no DNA taken from the garbage out front. They now want that evidence, as well as his phone and Google records, kept from the jury. Kohberger is accused in the November 2022 quadruple stabbing deaths of University of Idaho students Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen.
Now, think about that, you guys, and I'll talk to you for a second before we get into the controversial, what we're predicting for the trial coming. Yeah, I totally agree. He's an incel, I believe, allegedly a perv. But if they get that evidence thrown out, you guys, those are the key pieces of evidence. Now, think about the Golden State Killer here. The Golden State Killer got caught 30-something years later by the same system that caught Bryan Kohberger, by checking 123andMe and finding a distant relative, bringing it in, and then checking him. Okay, so that's one of the worst killers to date, is the Golden State Killer. They would not have anybody arrested if it wasn't for that touch DNA that first went to his father and then back to him. Okay, so if that gets kicked out, you guys, we're going to have a problem. And that's what we're going to talk about right after this clip. We're going to get into what we think is going to happen in the trials. And then we're going to keep up on January 23rd trial, what motions come up, what motions happen, and where we are with the case.
Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle. At the time, he was studying criminology at nearby Washington State University. A judge entered a not guilty plea on Kohberger's behalf. Prosecutors have until December 6th to respond. A hearing is scheduled in January to address this latest legal battle. Now, Kohberger's defense was successful in getting the trial moved from Moscow, where the murders occurred, to a county with a larger jury pool. They are also fighting to take the death penalty off the table. We are awaiting a judge's decision on that motion. Guys.
All right, Dana, thank you so much. Laura, you know this case incredibly well. I think one key question here is about whether did authorities actually ever find a murder weapon?
No, they didn't. It's part of what's making this case so unusual, and how they found him. Remember, they found what they believed to be his DNA on the knife sheath that was found next to one of the victims, but they never actually found the murder weapon, the knife. And so they used public genealogy databases, which is what's so controversial here. And the law is sort of untested in this area, and it's part of what he's using to challenge the evidence and try to get it thrown out. So it'll be interesting to see what the judge does with that, since it's this area of the law that's still undergoing some testing.
That and the stalking, you guys. Somebody earlier said that the stalking isn't stalking if they weren't feeling threatened by it. So that's a big one. That's a huge one, and we can't let that happen. All right, now we're going to get all pumped up because we've got an episode that came out 3 days ago. It's Nancy Grace, Joseph Scott Morgan, and many other people to break down what's going to happen next. I had not covered this case at all. And so I wanted to make sure that we are all caught up on the same page in this one episode, and then I can continue. But just so you know, at this point, if I were on the jury and the evidence that came in as of now, I would say he's guilty for sure. But if they take this evidence out, I don't see how people could possibly say he's guilty. How could you say that? By coincidence? Look at her
to
face.
Madison Mogen in an eerie premonition.
Listen.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. Thank you for being with us.
On the evening of November 12th and into the early morning hours of November 13th, Kaylee and Madison arrived home at approximately 1:45 a.m. after visiting a local bar and a street food vendor. Ethan and Xana were also out in the community at Sigma Chi, and they arrived home at approximately 1:45 a.m. Two surviving roommates who were also out in the community arrived home at approximately 1 a.m. Later, on the morning of November 13th at 11:58 a.m., a 911 call was placed. The call reported an unconscious person. The call originated from inside the residence, and a surviving roommate's cell phone was used. During that call,
Now, before I continue, I gotta say, you guys, this is, we've all either been to college or been to college parties or been to parties, what have you. Now, I still want to know what happened with the roommate that identified him beautifully with those bushy eyebrows. It's not coincidental that she would be able to see him, even with one eye closed and hung over, that she was able to identify that trait and then the DNA to match. But yay, 420. Woo, thank you, Foxy Amazon. All right. But if I were to guess, I would say yes, it was probably a party house. People probably smoked weed. They probably drank. They probably did Molly. Who knows what else? That's what you do in college, and that's what you do at college parties. But when I hear that it's a DRUG house or that people were selling and it's some big drug dealers they owe money to, I want to tell you what I think happened. I think that she got a little bit afraid, like we all do. What's up, Nicole? Like we all do every once in a while. We're in our room and we hear something creepy. We look out the door and we're not quite sure because maybe there's people in and out of the house. You have roommates. She identified him and then she passed out because it was in the morning and she had been drinking or whatever, out partying. And then the next day when she woke up from her, drinking and partying, and they were all dead, she realized what she had saw. Now we're going to hear from her. She's obviously going to be a state's witness. So I'm just giving you what I think happened. I don't think it was anything nefarious. I think that just plain and simple. I used to live in a house with 4 different roommates. People came in and people came out, and I didn't always know who they were. Does it mean that we were selling drugs and it was a drug house? No. It means people like to party and there were people in and out. Nope, not today. Says, so now I'm in it with the guilty of crime crew. I'm torn. Thank you. Nope, not today. Well, listen up. This is going to be a controversial episode here because you're going to hear the back and forths.
the dispatcher spoke to multiple people who were on scene. Moscow police officers responded and found 2 victims, 2 on the 2nd floor and 2 on the 3rd floor of 1122 King Road. The results of autopsies indicated that the 4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds, and there was no sign of sexual assault.
You are hearing Police Captain Roger Lanier there in Moscow detailing what happened the morning the murders were reported to 911. In the last hours, a bombshell in the courtroom. Bryan Kohberger announces his formal alibi that he was, quote, out watching the moon and the stars around 3 to 4 a.m. the night of the murders. Hold that thought. Also, in the middle of all of this, let me throw this in the pot to stew. We are now learning, contrary to many earlier reports, that there was no stalking. Bryan Kohberger reportedly stalked no one. This is a torpedo to the state's case. Listen.
Bryan Kohberger tried to message one of the female victims of the Idaho murders. That's reportedly what an unidentified police source told People magazine. The source said weeks before the murders, direct messages were repeatedly sent to one of the women.
Now, keep in mind, you guys, these are all the things that we've heard from the very beginning. They want these all to get thrown out. They say they're not reliable. If you ask me, this guy's an incel. He's a creepy, weird incel that can't hold the conversation with a woman, is awkward, and then has anger towards women because he's not getting what he wants, but other people are getting what they want. He sees other guys that aren't as good looking as he thinks he is, that have girlfriends. He's seeing, people on dating apps. He's seeing them out partying, having fun with each other. He's seeing them on TikTok, having a good time, really beautiful women that he can't have. That's what I think. And I hope that comes out. And I hope he spends his life on Well, I hope he gets the death penalty, to be honest with you. I'd love to be part of that firing squad, folks.
Women over Instagram. The source said
Wow.
there was no reply.
Thank
Reports early on from an anonymous source revealed that there were pictures of at least one of the victims in Bryan Kohberger's photo roll. Steve and Kaylee Goncalves also shared screenshots with CBS News purportedly showing an Instagram account belonging to Bryan Kohberger, and it had interacted with and followed Madison Mogen and Kaylee Goncalves on the social media platform. Kaylee Goncalves said that Kohberger had liked pictures on Madison Mogen's account. The account that Goncalves referred to was not authenticated as belonging to Kohberger.
Then who was it? Well, that's what we've been told all along, right? All wrong. There
All
was
wrong,
a
guys.
serious blow up in court. Listen.
And that's what I'm bringing to you right now, because this is all happening right now. And then in another less than 2 weeks, we have our next motions that are filed. We have a new judge coming up. We have a different place that we have. And there's going to be changes in this, and there's going to be controversy. As a matter of fact, I'm just blessed with having you guys as my crime crew here. But I got to tell you, there's not a lot of people that are like us here. When I go onto other sites and I'm digging and researching, I'm hearing people tell me, "Jay, you're an idiot. What are you talking?" And they don't even know who I really am. A lot of times I'm just in there learning what I need to learn, and I'm trying to, figure out what I'm trying to figure out. And people absolutely dismiss my theories. So, yeah, you're on pins and needles. Oh no, that means I'm doing my job right, Augustina Hermosillo. Love you guys. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you. I love you. Don't forget, I'll be here tomorrow on a Saturday. We're going to remember Corey Michello, and we're going to talk about the new letter for Christopher Kohberger, and we're going to have Toddy One here tomorrow with Rebecca Michello. So stay tuned tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern.
You acknowledge false that Mr. Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims. That's false. You know that to be false.
Which one?
That Mr. Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims.
Yes, I was trying not to say that because.
But you knew that was false.
I did.
Yes, and so you have now.
What?
You've never heard that before. That question is now planted into them unqualified representation that Mr. Kohberger stalked one of the witnesses, and that's false.
That's false. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Here-
Thank you.
Okay. Fine.
What?
What in the world? You are hearing the prosecutor, that is Bill Thompson, the Lotto County prosecutor, reaming, technical legal term, Dr. Edelman for the defense. And the prosecutor is grilling him on claims that he made to potential jurors about stalking in this case. Joining me, an all-star panel to make sense of everything that's going on in that courtroom, and there is a lot. But
I
first,
love
to
these
Caitlin
guys.
Hornick joining us, editor at the U.S. Sun. Caitlin, thank you for being with us. I'm going to get to the moon and the stars. All right, I've already researched the whole thing on the Farmer's Almanac. Caitlin, what is this about no stalking? Are we losing motive for murder?
You know, Nancy, I think there are a lot of things still at play that this jury ultimately will have to uncover. The thing that's really sticking out to me is the back and forth with the stalking. I don't know how you can go from saying that there were these messages exchanged on Instagram and that the photos on the camera roll to saying, oh no, wait, that's not true. That's actually not true.
Right.
I think there are a lot of things that the prosecutors need to be honest about, and that they need to lay out in plain terms facts about what actually went on. Personally, I think the fact that Kohberger's prosecutors doubled down on his alibi is equal parts shocking and,
Yeah, now keep in mind they just moved it with the last court hearing. So they moved it from the town where there's lots of emotion, right? Lots of emotion and people that are right in the middle of where that happened. So they don't get somebody on the jury that's just feeling their emotions. So they went from Moscow, Idaho to Boise, Idaho. But now we've heard this before that his alibi was stargazing, but they're doubling down on that stargazing and saying that's absolutely what he was doing. That's why you see him out there. That's why it accounts for the cell phone tower pings. All right, let's keep going. Absolutely, this
Just
case.
kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, I'm
and
thinking
it-
about that whole watching the moon and stars aspect of this. Let me go to high profile lawyer joining us from this jurisdiction, Tara Malik, partner at Smith and Malik and former state and federal prosecutor. Tara, thank you for being with us. Do you remember, of course you do, the famous, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit? Well, I feel like I'm getting bit in the neck with this thing, but all along we have heard police stating we don't have evidence of stalking. We've heard that from the get-go, but yet we've seen screens and heard evidence that there was stalking by Kohberger on at least one of the victims, if not more. So are we going to have...
Now, I think what's happening, we'll let her answer that in a minute, what she thinks, but I think what's happening here is because of all the evidence that has come out already about Kohberger and the DNA and the stalking, I think they're trying to discredit it and put as many motions, change as much as they can, and they've also tried to get the death penalty off the table, which hasn't happened yet. But if they don't have enough evidence and they're able to get that the stalking didn't happen, like you just heard, then there's a good possibility they're not going to get the death penalty on the table. Now, I agree with that. If the glove don't fit, you must acquit, right? Chief says my cousin lives in Boise. Wonder if she would be a juror. Good possibility. Good possibility. Thank you so much, Leanne Wilson, for the $3 super sticker. I do appreciate you. Let's make everyone smile now. Take your pills, guys. Stargazing my ass. All right.
A Johnny Cochran-esque defense. No stalking, no murder, no motive.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly doesn't help the state's case. Motive is not something that they have to prove. It's not like, an element of the charges, but what it does is explain the why behind the crimes. And jurors always want to know why. Why did this happen?
But you don't have to.
Guys,
You don't
as a
have
matter
to
of
have
fact,
the
it
why.
goes way back. Take a listen to Police Captain Roger Lanier.
We have heard mention that Kaylee stated she may have had a stalker. Detectives have been looking into that and to this point have been unable to corroborate the statement, although we continue to seek information and tips regarding that report. No suspects have been named or arrested, and we continue looking for what we believe to be a fixed blade knife used in the murders.
That knife never found, and neither has there been found evidence of stalking again. I can hear it ringing in my ears right now. No motive, no murder. Joining me, as I said, an all-star panel, to Chris McDonough joining us, Director, Cold Case Foundation.
Now, Chris McDonough has been on this case. Wait till you hear from him. Chris McDonough, he is set to have Kohberger be prosecuted and put to death. This guy will do it. He'll do streams for 3 hours long. Man, he's on this Kohberger case. So what he says means a lot. So let's listen in. But, if they suppress any of that evidence, then, we could be in trouble. We could, stay gazing, stargazing. It just, come on, guys. Really? That doesn't, I don't even think that, I don't think a jury would buy that, but you never know.
Former homicide detective.
Thank you.
On the interview room on YouTube, Chris McDonough, of course, the state, as you know, from handling so many homicides, never has to prove motive. But in many people's minds, there should be a motive presented to a jury, because how could a jury believe that someone that doesn't know these 4 victims would just randomly choose them and murder them to, quote, see what it feels like? That's going to be a tough sell, especially now that we find out the state has also learned the defense is bringing on cell phone and radio frequency data to refute claims Kohberger was in the area of the murders at the time of the murders. The state is getting torpedoed left and right. Now we've lost motive, the stalking.
Yeah, Nancy, I mean, one of the most interesting things, and it may just be semantics, is when Thompson was arguing with the expert witness that the defense put on, he mentioned that there's no evidence of witnesses being stalked. I thought that was a very interesting choice of words versus victims. This may be a cover play as well by the state, because you've got to now think about, we've got some amateur astronomer, i.e. Kohberger, exercising in the middle of the night, yet his cell phone shows up 12 separate times around the crime scene.
This, as we are learning, and correct me if I'm wrong, Caitlin Hornick joining us from the U.S. Sun, but the poll.
And before I get into this, what about the Papa Rogers thing, you guys? I almost forgot about that until now. Do you remember the Papa Rogers account that gave this supposition of somebody just wanting to find out what it would feel like to take someone's life? I don't know if you guys remember that, but yeah, I can't stand looking at him either. But that Papa Rogers account came down, and you know who could have checked for that? The law enforcement could have checked to see where that came from. There were so many things on the Papa Rogers account. We assume that he had that account, but we don't know it was him. I mean, it mirrored Kohberger in his life. It even mirrored the way he looked, you guys. So yeah, his alibi is shite, but they're accepting it, and he's doubling down on it. I mean, they're fighting really hard right now, you guys, for it. But Papa Rogers, I wonder if they scrapped that idea. I haven't heard anything about it. That would be another coincidence, right?
Holster, the surveyor that was hired by the defense to call at least 400 prospective jurors, asked the jurors about stalking. And we heard prosecutor Bill Thompson say, you knew that wasn't true, and you asked people, you put it out there in the ether that there was stalking. And the guy responds, I don't care if it's true or false. He actually said that in a court of law. Did that happen, Caitlin?
I think one of the biggest things at play here that the prosecution, that Kohberger, that everyone involved is struggling with is misinformation. We've seen that from the beginning with the stalker, not stalker bit. There's so many inconsistencies that I think are
okay. There it is. Watch this, Gerard.
Okay, question. I'm asking you about the surveyor that sent out calls to at least 400 potential Kohberger jurors. And in that phone survey, the surveyor asked about Kohberger stalking the victims.
No.
And you know what? Play it again, Liz. It's cut 20. Bill Thompson, the Lottie County prosecutor, grilling Dr. Edelman, who took part in this survey. Listen.
You acknowledge false that Mr. Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims. That's false. You know that to be false.
Which one?
That Mr. Kohberger allegedly stalked
the stalking.
Yes, I was trying not to say that because
but you knew that was false.
I did.
Yes. And so you would now, for anybody who had never heard that before, that question is now planted into them, unqualified representation that Mr. Kohberger stalked one of the witnesses, and that's false.
That's false. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, how is that false?
Okay, fine.
What?
So, Caitlin Hornick, explain who is Dr. Edelman.
He's a pollster. Why he was making these phone calls and kind of, planting this information remains to be seen. Why he went so far and, to say that there was stalking and, but these false claims, it doesn't make sense.
Details matter.
Okay.
Now we are learning about the weather conditions tonight for University of
Here
Idaho
it is.
students. murdered, as prime suspect Bryan Kohberger claims he was out alone watching the moon and stars at 4 a.m. To Joe Scott Morgan, how difficult is it to pull that up? Because I found it pretty quickly. The night sky at 11:50 p.m., November 12th, through.
All right, before I get to Joseph Scott Morgan, I want to ask you, Xana Faircloth, what? What do you mean what? So what they're saying is that the stalking allegations that were put into the case as a motive, they're saying that that wasn't true at all, which doesn't make sense, because if we're going from the pings that we just showed again and we've talked about earlier, he was, oh, you don't know who, what? You don't know we're talking about Kohberger? We're talking about the Idaho 4, the beautiful children, and I called them children because they were very young adults, all 21 and 20, or I just had all their 20. They weren't even old enough to drink, you guys. Madison Mogen and Kaylee Goncalves were old enough to drink, and Xana and Ethan were 20 years old. And Bryan Kohberger right now is being held for their lives. That's what we're talking about. Bryan Kohberger. Do they have the right suspect? And what will his defense be? Right now, it looks like they're stargazing. And that's what we're going to ask him about. Joseph Scott Morgan next.
Out. The morning was basically very low visibility. And Joe Scott, before you answer that, I'm looking throughout the night. 3:17 a.m. overcast. 3:53 a.m. That's the time of the murders. Ice and fog. 4:53 overcast. 5:53 overcast. 6:53 overcast. So what's he looking at?
Nothing. I mean, how can he see it? Unless he has some kind of special ability. How are you going to be able to go out and appreciate this? And you're talking about a layer of fog, Nancy, as well, because that's going to settle between your view of the sky and yourself, your position relative to the sky. All right. So it's not just simply that it's overcast. It's like you begin to think about fog that's perhaps over there. It's kind of, how they use the term, Nancy, a blanket of fog. You begin to think about that. So that's even going to further obscure your view.
So I'm looking at this, the cloud cover on Saturday, November 12, 2022 in Moscow, Idaho. Cloud coverage, the height of dominant cloud layer, very, very thick and overcast that night. There is not only overcast, but ice and fog. And you know what I think would be a fantastic courtroom demonstration? And of course, Tara Malik, high-profile lawyer joining us out of this jurisdiction. Tara, wouldn't it be a great demonstration to turn off all the lights in the courtroom and try to recreate the conditions, maybe with possibly an overhead projector of some sort of the stars and the moon? How little you could see that night. That would be tough to do. Maybe there's some sort of a satellite picture from that night. I bet there is, that could be achieved by the state to show the jury, maybe from the U.S. Weather Service, how overcast it really was that night. And for him to be out at 4 a.m.
Now that would be a really good test, although it's kind of hard to prove because we know weather people don't always get it correct. However, just the base of my alibi was I go out on a nightly basis when I'm stressed out and I go and look at stars and I do a drive. Now, they took a look at his other pings from other nights, and that was not a regular occurrence, you guys, but it was a regular occurrence in the weeks before the murders for him to go and do a trial run. And that's where I think the stalking came in. We love you too, Foxy Amazon. I can't wait to get this episode out. We're doing it right now, but I can't wait because so many people I hear on other channels, and I don't know where they are right now. I'm glad they're not here arguing with me, but so many people are saying that he's a patsy, he's innocent. They put it off on him, and I don't understand why. Leanne Wilson's a member for 3 months. I love this crime family. Jay is amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you guys and all that you guys do. Thank you so much. And yes, let me talk about the fires real quick. I am in San Jose, California. I'm about 7 hours away from the fires. I'm northern California, and it's happening Southern California. And just a tidbit of information, if you didn't know, did you know that Mel Gibson's house burned down? There were stars, like a lot of the big name stars in Hollywood, and that was the one I heard the most of. So I don't know what other stars lost their homes, but he did. Mel Gibson. All right. U.S. leads the rest of the world in documented serial killers with a whopping 3,613 serial killers as of 2020. England is not. It's not so second, close with 176 as a. Thank you, MM Clark. I appreciate that. You guys know that that's what brought me here to YouTube, was to study these crazy monster serial killers. And this case fascinates me by what he did, how he did it, the timing that he did it, the way that he did it, how brutal it was, and just how quick he was in and he was out. Now, if we were to go back and just dive into it, they found things on his computer, and his interests were, guess what? Weapon fighting or knife fighting. There were moves that they found on his computer, things that he was learning to fight with a knife. So you could just kind of walk into someone's house right when they come out. You have this big K-bar, right? So imagine you're walking into the hallway and you see Jay walk up to you. Just literally you put your arm out and then whack, just one slice is all it would take for a K-bar. And that's what I was told. That's what it looks like he did with Ethan. Now, Ethan was a big guy. Ethan was a really big 6 foot something guy. And I believe that Ethan came out to check what was going on because he heard whimpers or things going on. And Kohberger popped out on him and did just a full on slice, because the way his body was and how he attacked him wasn't a man fighting back. It was a man that got caught off guard and just got. I know there were other spots in autopsies we can look at later, but with the girls, and I say the girls meaning the two that I believe he was targeting the most. I know there's one. I think it was Madison, but Kaylee. Madison Mogen and Kaylee Goncalves. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say it right. They were brutally, to the point where their eyelids were cut off, you guys. And I don't know, and I know there were a lot of defensive wounds. I'm not sure if they were defending and he was slicing, but there were eyelids cut off, you guys. It was brutal. So for your K-bar sheath to come off and end up either under or next to those bodies, you would have to be really close and then touch DNA. It was a brutal scene. And like I said, he's a freaking, in my opinion, Kohberger is he's a incel wussy boy. Didn't want to fight Ethan, but he wanted to eliminate him so that he could do what he did. And he had an interest in seeing how it was to kill people, in my opinion. And it's not a far stretch. I mean, I see him as a Ted Bundy, except for he didn't get away with it. Yeah, DNA does say a lot. Yeah, Dexter Morgan. I'm watching the new season of that. This case is sad because there was one last time, you guys, one last time for Kaylee to come over there, hang out with her friends, sleeping in bed with Madison. You know how girls are. She brings her Range Rover. She gets this new car. She's off to Texas to start her new life. She posts on Instagram and she says, I'm here one last time to hang out with my girls, my friends, and her life's taken. I do believe Kaylee was the target of this attack. But I do believe also when you look at their pictures and you see how pretty they were, and if you're an incel looking at them, you have hate and you seethe, you guys, you're seething for them. Now, the thoughts on demolishing the apartment, I think they should have waited. However, it's been 3 years, you guys, and it still hasn't gone to trial, and there's no guarantee. So do I say, well, that's going to hold a lot of weight. I don't know. I think if it's going to make the community feel better, if it's going to make the community heal, I say do what you need to. Now, they did scan every section of that. And, I'm an engineer. I'm a mechanical engineering COO. I know what it looks like to do a 3D model and a 3D rendering and a scanning. And it's pretty good. You do a pretty good job. You go in there, you scan everything. It comes into a program, and you can literally see that place right there. Now, would it be brutal? Would it be brutal to if you see the pictures and you see the blood that was dripping out of there? It was so brutal that their blood came through the walls, you guys. It was dripping through the wall onto the concrete on the outside of the house. Now, Foxy Amazon says, read the letters. What letters are you talking about? Tell me what letters you're referring to, and I'd be happy to read letters. Now, like I said, you look at that place. I'm sure when you go there, there's a pit in your stomach when you go to that house. And when you go to the house and you see the outside of it and you see the blood dripping from it, it absolutely is. It leaves a feeling in my gut that's not good. Leanne, you're the woman. Thank you so much for the $2 super sticker. Choo choo. If any of you guys have the means to help assist it out and hop on the train, like I said, we have 20,000 subscribers. So if everybody threw a 99 cents in, we'd be good to go. All right. Again, I want to let you know we are working on my house. I talked to my insurance agent yesterday, and we'll probably be done with the insides in the next 3 to 6 months. But anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And yeah, if you guys have the means to get memberships, gift memberships. I gifted 5 yesterday because it let me from my work computer, but it's not letting me on this computer. So know that I love you guys and I appreciate you. All right, let's keep going. I don't know what letters you want me to read. If you tell me, let me know. Or send me an email and I'll check my email. It's guiltyofcrimebyj@gmail.com. All right, let's keep going. Yeah, it was a very brutal, frenzied attack. I believe he came in, he came out. The goriest part were the girls, and it was a personal attack, in my opinion. And the blood that came out of the walls, you guys, that's just. What's the address of the house? Oh my God, blood! I'll give you pictures of the house. Give me. Let's watch this, and then I'll show you the blood dripping out of the house. Oh, nerving.
Stargazing. What a sack of, let me just say, BS, technical legal term. I mean, is this really happening, Tara?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is a weak alibi that's being put forward.
Weak
and I
as
agree.
fuck.
If there's a way to demonstrate or show a picture about what this guy looked like that night, I would certainly think that would help the prosecution's case in poking holes in this alibi defense.
I'm wondering if they're going to use cell phone data to suggest Kohberger was elsewhere at the time of the murders looking at the stars, because that elsewhere is out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it seems like that they're going to rely on cell phone data to say he was out at a park stargazing. But, again, where is this park, and is the park within the route of, the circuitous kind of route that we've already know and talked about that he took to get over to the victims' homes? So there's a lot to be seen here. And it seems like the defense is also saying we still don't have the discovery that we need to get all this information
3
out
years.
and to support our alibi.
I believe you testified that you don't care if the information that you put in your specific questions to.
All right, and these are all great details. I'm going to show you the house real quick. I'm just going to show you some of the things so you can take a look. I don't know why it's not in my slideshow, but I really want you to see this. This is from the girls' room. You're never, ever, ever, ever going to convince me that it wasn't a targeted attack when you see the blood that was coming out of their room, you guys. Absolutely. I mean, I can go on and on and on about this case, but I do want to thank Gringa for the 5 Guilty of Crime memberships. I love you, girl. And Jen Mac 24-3. Thank you so much. And you look adorable right there. Is that your wedding picture, or are you just at a wedding? Thank you for the super sticker, the $4.99. I appreciate you. All right, take a look at that wall. And I'm going to dive this more. I got a big, nice deep dive. I want to thank Petty for doing the deep dive with me and Bree. So I've got lots of information. We're only getting into a fraction of it today. Now, take a look at this wall, you guys. They marked it here. Look at this wall. Let me pull it up. Look at that. Hold on. Where did it go? Okay, let me share that. I'm going to show it close up. That is, that right there sealed the deal when I realized what they were doing. They marked that, but that's the outside of their bedroom, you guys. Have you guys seen the house? Yeah, look at the blood. I'm sure the blood in the house was unreal, but that was coming out of their bedroom. Those two girls their lives were taken. They were on the bed. I'm imagining they were on the bed up against that wall because both of them were sleeping in the same bed. You know how girls are, and they're cold, they're scared, or they just, they're like BFFs. Yes, Casey Adkins, the house is bleeding. So if you could imagine what that looks like on the outside of the wall, can you imagine what it looked like on the inside? I've never seen. Listen, thank you so much, Casey. I have never seen blood dripping from the outside of a crime scene before either. That would have been very powerful. I think you're right. That is a real photo. Let me show you some more. Let me show you that it's a real photo. Let me go back. There's literally a whole page. Let me show you. Hold on. Let me take this off and show you the whole page that shows you the outside of that house. Now, the inside's a bit different, but take a look at this. It's like a horror movie. Every single picture there is that. You can see it there. That's where they marked it there. You see the marks on the outside of it? Check it out. I made it bigger. Do you see how I went on there? It's like a horror movie, Rachel. They marked it for the outside purposes. That day when they were going in and out of that house, the officers, that is literally what the scene looked like from the outside. And it looked dreary, it looked scary. But that seals a big deal for me when I see that. I imagine that's why they got rid of it. They did save pieces of it, you guys. They bulldozed it down and then they saved pieces of it. I'm sure for evidence. So you guys can see, so that's a bloody part of the house, but this is what he did. This is what he did. It's a weird, they call it the blood-soaked Idaho crime scene. All right, let me pull this one in. Let me show you this real quick. Yeah, blood smells like iron. Blood and murder is something that doesn't go away, you guys. So blood-soaked Idaho crime scene, major challenge for investigators, experts say. That's the house there, and there it is, the third floor. So what they suppose is that he came in from that back door here. There's a first floor level, and he came right up here to the slider door, the back door, took the first victims out. There's a little animation of it, but he didn't make it all the way upstairs. Am I correct? Yeah, it's something like a slasher movie. So he came in. Those back doors were probably unlocked, you guys. If you know anything about the Ted Bundy murders, he walked right in, just like part of the crowd. All right. So I imagine he walked in. He was in and out within minutes, back in that car. So I'm going to have to get better pictures of this. But yeah, there's the front of the house. That's what it looked like. They taped it off, and minus the bloody walls in there. And then investigators in hazmat suit examined the scene of the quadruple homicide near the university campus. All right. Now, it says the killer, Clemente, said he didn't think the attack was random and described the killer as sloppy and young. It just seemed like a targeted event. I think it was building up in him for a while, and he just lashed out. We may not have come to a conclusion. It's frustrating. And now it took them 7 months to catch him, you guys. It took them 7 months to catch him, but they didn't find a weapon. But I think they did pretty good evidence, a pretty good job with the evidence. All right, let's listen a little bit more and hope that this stuff doesn't get kicked out, you guys.
In surveyors correct. That you said that, didn't you?
Right. I don't know what you mean by correct.
True or false?
I care about whether or not it's proliferated by the media.
You don't care if it's true.
You guys.
No, I don't. I
No.
don't care about is it prejudicial.
So it's okay to taint people who had never heard that information before for the end result of identifying others who have and might have bias. Is that a fair statement?
I'm going to object to the questions.
He can answer
He's
the question.
badgering.
So why is it that the only corroboration, Mark Tate, that
All right. They weren't there long, Shauna. Check this out. Those girls were killed at 4 o'clock. All of them. Their lives were taken in the early morning hours, 4 o'clock or so. Then the other roommates that didn't get their lives taken were sleeping. Okay? He didn't even go up to that top floor. There are 2 other witnesses there. And listen up. The girls woke up the next day and didn't call 911 until like noon. So this only happened if you go 4 o'clock in the morning, roughly till noon, about 8 hours. That's it. There are other people that woke up to that, you guys. Now, I can imagine that because I used to have roommates that were in and out, never thought a thing of it, you know. But waking up and coming out, trying to get your coffee or whatever, and then, hey, Xana, hey, whatever, and seeing that, Dylan Mortensen's going to be scarred for life. And there's another person in there as well. Now, Goldilocks says the blood is Ethan and Xana's room. Now, okay, thank you. Thank you, Goldilocks. I didn't have that layout with me. So that's Ethan and Xana's room, not. Okay, but if you take a look at the crime scene, they were the ones that were most targeted. They were the ones that had the most amount of damage and defensive wounds to them. So thank you for clarifying that, Goldilocks. I appreciate you. This is a big case, and this is my first introduction episode.
Kohberger is bringing on is a set of cell phone pings.
But there's nothing wrong with that. The prosecution has indicated they're going to rely on cell phone pings. And the law about alibi in Idaho is anytime after arraignment, you're allowed to tell the prosecutors rather,
there it is,
that
guys.
You're going to rely on alibi and you have to disclose your witnesses. However, here, the witnesses are cell phone pings, just like the prosecution's relying on cell phone pings.
Okay, so it was the first floor then, Goldilocks, that didn't get touched. Is that correct? So then the second and third. I always get confused because of the way the floor lays, and I don't have a picture of the layout in my images for some reason. So the first floor, one of the floors was untouched. That's where the people that didn't get their life taken, he headed straight to where he was going, did his due, and left people alive. So thank you. Bree, I don't know if you want to send me a picture of the layout, but I didn't see one in there. I didn't see one in my folder of that house and the bodies. All right, let's keep going. Thank you.
So is the defendant allowed to rely as well. Now, of course, that's going to be put in front of a jury, just like issues about whether he wore gloves and how strange that is. All of that will be admitted by witnesses, all of whom are subject to a sifting cross-examination.
Yes.
And so now the prosecution knows there's going to be an alibi defense. And when there is, it has to be supported by admissible evidence. And so with each witness comes the chance to demonstrate reasonable doubt.
Criminal code on evidence to me. I got it.
That's right.
Hey,
so that's
Liz,
what the defense lawyer has to do. That's what they have to do.
Let's give Mark
They have to
Tate
hold
a
the
little bit of his
prosecution's
own
feet to the
medicine.
fire. Well, what is it? You're going to make me wear.
Okay, perfect. That's what I always get confused. Instead of rather backwards, I was backwards. The bottom floor is where he didn't bother. He came in at second level and then got everyone at second and third. So thank you, Bernice, and all of you guys. I appreciate you very much. We suspect that he had gone to that house multiple times, according to the pings, hence the stalking. He may have even been in that house from one of the parties, you guys. He may have gone to a party, checked it out days before, weeks before. So yeah, Leanne said, thank you so much for the $5 pound. You better get the chair like Bundy. Thumbs up if you love Jay and the crew and match me. Thank you so much. You guys, thumbs up. If you can't afford to super chat, super sticker, and get yourself, you can hit the like button. It's free. So that's scary to think of, that he visited the house and did that. Thank you. Bethany was on the bottom, Dylan was on the same, and Xana and Ethan. Thank you. So he just came right in, did that, and came right out. Bethany was on the bottom, and that house had a weird layout. For the bottom was my bottom was down, second floor was like almost the first, and that was it. Thank you, Wolfpack. I appreciate you. Nancy to be so rude. That was funny that she did that.
About the cell phone pings. I've got a pair here for you, but maybe you could borrow Kohberger's. Oh, wait, no, they're in evidence. Joining me, Chris McDonough. You were talking about the pings, and you didn't get to say it on air. But Tate is all about, the pings are going to help exonerate him.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. Okay, he's at home, 2:42. He's at home, back at home at 5:27. He's at home at 9:32 a.m. But wait a minute.
He comes back.
4:50 phone ping. 4:48 phone turned back on. Wait, 2:47 a.m. right before the murders, in the middle of the night while he's out stargazing, he decides to turn his phone off from 2:47 to 4:48. Wow. Chris McDonough, isn't that exactly when the time the murders occurred?
Yeah, absolutely, Nancy. And what's interesting about that, and you pointed it out, was, the one thing we learned about this alibi as well is all 4 of the victims are sound asleep. And, the 12 other times that he was seen around that neighborhood, they were also asleep. But in this particular case, you have the phone pings that get up to the point where they turn off. And then all of a sudden, the video picks it back up in the neighborhood, i.e. the car. Whenever you hear a defense attorney say, the public has a right to know, and there's a gag order, that's usually a clue that there's something coming.
Please join us on our mission.
Let's keep going. Get past this.
Not cell phone,
There-
but video surveillance from a nearby home, a residence, shows a white sedan passing the King Road address. That
Matches his
oops,
sedan.
just like his white Elantra. 404. The sedan returns and stops in front of the King Road address. 4:20, 16 minutes later, the white sedan scratches off, taking off like a bat out of hell at a high speed, leaving the King Road address. And then 28 minutes later, and for me, it was about an hour drive, 4:48 a.m., 28 minutes later, that phone is turned back on and it's pinging south of Moscow, Idaho, State Highway 95. I took that drive to Professor Forensics,
creepy.
Jacksonville State University, author of Blood Beneath My Feet on Amazon, star of a hit series, Body Bags, and most important for me right now, forensic expert and death investigator, Joe Scott. He's between a rock and a hard spot. I want you to analyze everything Slater has told us, but also we are poking a little bit of fun at the moon and the Stargate.
Now, there was a beautiful camera shot of that white sedan or white Elantra that caught it perfectly, test running, in my opinion, what it was doing. They saw it go by, come back, and go and turn around. That was a beautiful image that I know they're going to be. Yes, he was circling Bernice. Beautiful imagery of that particular car. And now you can't see the license plate or anything, but it was, in my opinion, his car. And you can see that test run very, very clear of what was happening. So now I'm looking at the floors, and I wish I would have had that. But first floor, there were no victims found. And on the first floor was bedroom A, bedroom B, got a bath and a hall, and then the front door. Now, second floor, the victims, that's where they were found. And it shows what I was talking about, the patio crowned access hill that you can see the slider. So he came in there and then did that to everybody as quick as he could. And then third floor victims found, that was the deck there's a deck, no access, and they show the hall and the bathrooms. So there were third floor victims found and second floor. It was the bottom floor that was untouched. That's what always confuses me, like off the top of my head. An alibi, don't they have to have that confirmed? Well, it is confirmed because his phone records show that he was out driving that night by the house.
Amazing alibi. But think about it. What else is Ann Taylor, the defense lawyer, going to say? He was
I
a party
hate
with
her.
all of his friends. That ain't happening. They got to come up with something
Hit
to
the
make
like
sense
button,
to a
y'all.
jury why he may have been out driving around. The only thing they can do is refute the cell phone data because that video
That's all they can
surveillance,
do.
I don't think
Yes,
it's got
Joseph
his car
Scott
tag.
Morgan.
No, it doesn't. But that's all they can do, Nancy, isn't it?
I
When
love
you
him.
begin to think about it, they're muddying the waters with all of this digital back and forth.
Yes.
Here's the one thing
Yes.
that they cannot overcome. Get this number in your mind. 5.37 octillion. That goes to
DNA.
his DNA profile. That means that the chances that it was somebody else are at that range. It's amazing, isn't it? Look what I have here. See?
Look at that, guys. It was
came
on
off
that
the
snap.
Nancy. It came
Hey, will you
off
do that
of
again?
the snap. Yeah,
Do
sure,
that again
absolutely.
because that's exactly where the DNA was found.
Yep, you had to
Yeah,
unbuckle
and I
that.
don't think that he was necessarily, planning on this, but listen,
Yep, you got.
I don't know if you could hear that, but
Yeah.
this has got, and I'm fascinated by this. I have been since the case. This little ring
it,
right
guys.
here where the snap actually actuates, it's a ridge. And so if you're actuating it with your thumb and you drag your thumb across it, anything can be collected in here. We think about touch DNA. If he's got sweat, that's coming off of his
Say
hand,
it, guys.
it could
Welcome,
be deposited
everybody.
there. Both are sources for DNA. One's richer than the other. But, when you begin to think about these numbers, Nancy, and just to put it in perspective, I'm not a real fine math guy, but that's 2027.
Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you guys. You guys are just the best crew ever. Now, I have people leaving here. I know it's it's 5:15 and people are watching other things, checking out the fire, and we haven't gotten to the algorithm just yet on this case. But thank you for being here. And if you leave, if you could just hit the like button on your way out. We definitely want to get this into the algorithm. The more people that know about this case and that understand what's happening, the better, right? We want justice for these beautiful victims. Again, it's just it's so heartbreaking to me that these kids, in my opinion, lost their life. They are children compared to me, right? 45 years old. They were 20 years old. I remember what I was doing at 20, and sure, it was having a good time, you guys, having a fantastic time, and they lost their lives in the peak of it.
Zeros, Nancy? That's an amazing number. And so the reason I'm saying this is that I don't think they have anything else. And they can parade all of the experts up there that they want to, but the one thing you can't get away from
Let's go,
at the
bring
end
it.
of the day, they
Bring
don't
it.
have the knife, but they've got this sheath and his DNA is on it. And that's a heck of a mountain for them to have to climb. When all of that is said and done, and we see the interior of that house, and we see what kind of butchery was perpetrated on these poor kids, they better damn well have something else.
Yes.
That dog ain't going to hunt because the jury is
I
going
love
to be
him.
put in the position to observe all of this. And then you're going to get somebody with a PhD in DNA sciences, and they're going to put them up on the stand. And I don't know what the defense can put up there that can thwart that particular attack on the part of the defense.
Hey, Joe Scott, you've testified in so many cases, and when I would prepare cases for trial, I would get my own case ready, rock solid.
Right.
Then I would think about what they were going to do and how I could fight it. Do you remember under Reagan, he came up with the Star Wars defense? We were going to shoot down missiles before they ever hit our homeland, the U.S.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I try to do. So I'm thinking, what are they going to do and how can I destroy it? They are going.
Now, let me stop for a second and say I love hearing Nancy's perspective. She's right. Defense is always going to take what the prosecution have and rebuttal it, whether they're lying, whether they know they're lying, whether they're just trying to prove the case to win it because, well, defendants get a fair trial. Now, Maggie Duke, you do have to prove an alibi for them to use it, but you can't disprove when you look at his records. You can't say that he wasn't out stargazing. You can't say that. He could have been out stargazing and also on the way to go attack those kids. So you can't disprove that. But in my opinion, that's a very silly alibi. And if one juror buys that, I can't imagine one juror buying it, let alone 12, you guys. Let's be real. When you look at those pings from the cell phone tower and you see that this guy, this monster, did a trial run, went back and forth, and then not on top of that, he went back the next morning, you guys. And the reason he went back the next morning to see if they had found the bodies yet, and they didn't. They did not find the bodies yet because the other roommates, remember, they were out partying late. They were up. They were sleeping. They didn't call until they were done sleeping. And we're going to find something else out, I'm sure. There's going to be something else that we find out that happened between the time that they woke up and those 911 calls. I guarantee you that there's a reason why they did not call right away. And it may be because they were scared. Maybe they had, 30 Molly pills or a big bag of mushrooms or whatever. Kids don't know that they don't care about that. When there's a murder scene, they don't give a shit if you got a big bag of blow, you guys. Call 911 and get help. Kids don't understand that. So I think there's going to be something like that that's going to come out, but who gives a shit, right? Who gives a shit if you have a brick of coke, if their life is taken, 4 people's lives were taken. They just don't understand that. Good night, Leanne. See you next Friday. Love you, girl. I hope I see you on Monday. I have a good show lined up for next week, so I hope to see you. Desiree says, what? Mushrooms where? Yeah, you're not kidding, girl. Yeah, have a peaceful night. Sweet dreams. Happy Friday to all of you. Yeah, kids. When people are saying, oh, she didn't call in right away, like, she's a kid. She was probably scared. Yeah, no explaining DNA away. The knife sheath combined with the phone pings augmented with surveillance of the white car in there. That's what I say too. But, you got these prosecutors and then you got the defense that's muddying up the water. And you got a lot of people that are like they're doing with the Delphi trial and saying it's not the guy.
Going to attack the DNA, the science itself, which, 5.37
they didn't.
billion, I think is more
the victims
people
didn't
that have ever in history that we know of lived on Earth.
Right.
Okay, so it's him. But what they could do is attack DNA science in general, but they could attack chain of custody of the DNA. They are likely to pull an OJ claiming that OJ Simpson
the glove
claiming
didn't
that
fit.
the cops wanted a defendant so badly they decided to pin it on Kohberger. But also the placement of the knife and the genesis of the knife. Joe Scott, they could claim, hey, I went to a gun and knife show and I picked up a knife like that and I tested it and I put it back and some other dude, I always use the sod defense, some other dude did it, must have used that knife. That's where they're going to go, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I've put a lot of thought into that relative to gun and knife shows, and the idea that he would randomly, and you guys in law use this term reasonableness. Is that reasonable?
While Bryan Kohberger's defense team tries their best to alibi him, to place him anywhere other than the crime
He's so
scene,
scary
damning
looking.
video emerges of a white Elantra,
yes, there it is,
identical to Kohberger's, near the King Road address. That's the crime scene.
Part of the hearing on the 14th is to talk about the different parts of that video that we've received and how we need the whole context. This is the video that they say places this car near the residence. We've received little tiny pieces of that. And we think Bryan's right to a fair trial means the public needs to know that they've withheld the audio.
That is such bullshit right there. And I got to tell you real quick, Desiree, muddied up the water means that we're listening to me talk right now. You're listening to me talk, and I'm like, hey, there's DNA, there's phone pings, which is from, the phone pings from the cell phone towers. So DNA, cell phone pings, his car that you see clearly, which they're talking about now. That's a clear guilty, right, Desiree? You see DNA, you see the car, and you see the phone pings. Done. It's a done deal. He's guilty. They're trying to throw mud up in that water and make it muddy so that when you say DNA and all those other things, that they make you think about water, right? Clear water in Hawaii, and then someone comes and throw a dirty, muddy rock in there and it messes it all up. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it so that the case is all, and people get confused, like the Delphi case. All right. Yeah, you never heard about that? That's funny. They're missing Dickie's jumpsuits, right? That's what they're trying to do. That's absurd, what Ann Taylor is saying right there. It's almost absurd for her to say they need the whole context of that video. No, we need to see his vehicle doing a circle and being like a shark. He's like Jaws. He's preying on those kids early in the morning, and then he goes back to see if his trophies got collected by the officers. Allegedly, yeah, right. Allegedly. All right.
From a great portion of that, and that it starts a long time before the little clip that we've received.
Man, is she burying the lead? She's complaining about the audio not being attached to the video. Here's the bombshell. There you're hearing the defense attorney for Bryan Kohberger, Ann Taylor, talking about the existence of video that places Kohberger's car, the white Elantra, near the crime scene. Yeah, that's a big deal. We believe that there's going to be 2 different video clips shown to the jury, one near the home and one near the gas station there at the corner. And I'm going to let Chris McDonough describe the gas station video, what he believes it will portray, and what the video at the home we believe is going to portray. Guys, with me, an all-star panel makes sense of what we know right now. Oh, you know what? I was just having my tea.
Yes,
and,
it is.
I didn't want to leave fingerprints on the cup, so I just thought I would use these. Okay.
Yes,
That
Nancy.
said, go ahead, Chris McDonough. Everybody.
Did you see what she just did there? She said she didn't want to leave her DNA, so she put gloves on to hold the coffee cup. That's what Kohberger was doing when they arrested him, you guys. He was literally at his parents' house wearing gloves while he was doing stuff and getting rid of his DNA. I'm sorry. If that doesn't say allegedly guilty, I don't know what does, but that was very funny. Good job. Good job, Nancy.
Take off your gloves. I promise not to collect your DNA. Well, not during the show anyway. Go ahead.
Yep. So Nancy, love the gloves. Right next to the murder scene, there's a house right on the corner there. And outside in the light socket for the front porch was an active surveillance camera. I believe that the evidence will show that that car comes up that street multiple times, and those are the clips that they're holding back, as well as the additional piece of evidence that they're going to show is away from the scene. They're going to show that that vehicle was either A, coming into the crime scene area, and or B, leaving. And I don't know if they're going to be able to correlate that in relationship to some of the phone pings, because remember, he turned his phone off. So, that in of itself is going to be interesting.
Guys, I want to hear exactly what the defense attorney, Ann Taylor, said. And in her whining about the video, what are we learning? Listen.
Part of the hearing on the 14th is to talk about the different parts of that video that we've received and how we need the whole context. This is the video that they say places this car near the residence. We've received little tiny pieces of that. And we think Bryan's right to a fair trial means the public needs to know that they've withheld the audio. from
Bullshit.
a great portion of that, and that it starts a long time before the little clip that we've received.
To Joseph Scott Morgan, forensic expert and professor at Jacksonville State University, I was listening to every word.
All right, and I'm gonna interject and tell you what they think they heard. Now, at the beginning of this trial, or no trial, at the beginning of this case, excuse me, people had some outlandish shit. I gotta tell you, people were saying that this is a house that was just dealing drugs and party, and in those images, the audio was saying you can hear them talking about drug deals and who owed what and the people yelling, and that it wasn't Kohberger. So it was clearly somebody that went in and did some kind of home invasion to get their money back or to steal their DRUGS. So that's what they're referring to. Anyway, cell phone habits are admitted. Yes, they are. They are. And he was not stargazing. He did not stargaze on a regular basis either. But I know what they're trying to do with that audio. They're trying to put that audio in when people were partying. They want that in so when they hear people partying, they can say, see, they're look at what they're doing there. They're party animals, they're DRUG sailors, all that. Yeah, sit down. I can't stand that lady.
She says. Ian Taylor is complaining about little tiny pieces of the video placing the car near the residence, according to police, and she doesn't like that. And she thinks that's not fair. But what it is different video cameras picking him up along the way. Did you decipher that? Or am I feeding you, spoon feeding you?
No, here's the thing. You know, these ring cams and these and CCTV, obviously, they're more prevalent today than at any other point in time in history. And so we don't necessarily know about where all of these clips are coming from. We do know the area that he was in, allegedly, this car moving back and forth, is going to be the most densely populated area in this geographic location. You know, you get out in these areas that are far flung. Remember the loop that they talk about, that where they were trying to collect images off of these gas station cams and wherever else the car may have passed. This is going to be the target rich area, though, around that residence at that point in time. Did they shake the bushes enough to collect enough of this data out there to piece this thing completely together? Apparently, she thinks they may have, Nancy.
Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger gets pulled over by law enforcement 2 times, not just in one day.
You know what? And that reminds me of Ted Bundy as well. All right, you guys, stay buckled up. We have about 10 more minutes. I tried to make this show an hour and a half, but I can't help it. We're almost at 2 hours. That's why I start at 3:30 today, because I have to pick up Reese. But listen, Ted Bundy was also a bad driver. Ted Bundy got caught because he was driving bad. He got caught from that yellow bug, the yellow Volkswagen. And the second time when he got caught in that yellow Volkswagen, he was driving shitty. Well, he always drove shitty, but he had escaped. He escaped from jail twice. Okay. So he escaped and then got pulled over. So if you guys don't know about that, Ted Bundy reminds me, it's all over this case. Ted Bundy was a shitty driver too. That's what I'm going to say. All right. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. Appreciate you all for being here.
But actually within minutes of each other on his way for Thanksgiving break to his parents' home near the Poconos. I've just got to say, 2 times within minutes, that's no coincidence.
How y'all doing today? Good. Take a look at your driver's license real quick if I could.
Shitty driver.
He's right up on that van, man. He was right up on the back end of that van. Pulled you over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay, cool. Where are you headed?
Well, we're coming from WSU.
His dad's all proud of him.
Where are you headed? He later says we're going for Thai food. And the dad's like, what? You were seeing body cam video when a Hancock County, Indiana Sheriff's Department body cam, when they pull them over and ask to see Kohberger's driver's license. Now, it was argued back and forth. and I claimed vehemently that this was no coincidence because there were 2 pullovers by local LE law enforcement in
they
one
wanted
trip
him.
home. When does that happen? How often do you get pulled over? I rarely get pulled over. So
Bad
you get pulled
driver.
over twice and you never even get a ticket? Oh no, that's stunk to high heaven. With me right now, Howard Bloom, author of a brand new book, When the Night Comes Falling, a Requiem for the Idaho Student Murders, which is
I don't like it.
amazing. And in his book,
I don't
he
like it.
outlines how these 2 pullovers nearly cost the FBI their investigation.
Yeah, they were investigating him already, you guys. They had eyes on him. They knew what they were doing. They knew where he was going. They found him very dangerous. Nobody thinks that this is his first time doing what he did. And if you read the Papa Rogers page that he had up, he really is into psychological serial killing type of activities. Like he really seems to be allegedly wired that way. Like he was born to. There's certain people that, it's nature versus nurture. Some people it's nature and nurture. Some people it's nature. Some people it's nurture. But he really seemed to be just wired that way. And they were already looking at him, so they were a little bit like, wait, why did you pull him over twice? And it's interesting. I think he knew that they were onto him. I think he knew that because he wouldn't have been wearing gloves and collecting the evidence that he was in his parents' house had he not figured that out. I think he did. I think he was like, wait a minute, I got pulled over twice in one day, no ticket. They were keeping an eye on him, you guys. Love you all. Stay warm and safe. Are you out of here, Jen's Gypsy? Thank you for hanging out here. Yeah, he is so dangerous, allegedly. He, in my opinion, is very dangerous, and they didn't want to take their eyes off of him. All right, I'm not a fan of a book coming out like this before trial, so I'm going to say that.
Or so they thought. Take a listen to more of the pullover.
What's WSU?
I go to the university basically, and you're listening to this. That is SWAT team area.
So I'm having a hard time hearing you because of the traffic. So you're coming from Washington State University?
Yeah.
And you're going where? Oh.
We're going to be going to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we're slightly punchy because we're driving for hours.
To Howard Bloom, I'm going to circle back to the fact that unasked, he starts talking about SWAT team swarming the area. Methinks thou doth protest too much, in the immortal words of William Shakespeare. Nobody asked about the Idaho murders, yet he's just regurgitating, vomiting the information when nobody asked. But I want to circle back to the so-called.
Now, there was another case that was right intertwined with that, and I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but many people also tried to say that he was mixed up with that, and he knew the guy, and there was some kind of connection, even though, in my opinion, there was zero connection. So I think they're going to talk about that now. What he started talking about had to do with another crime, another MURD. I don't know if this episode is going to even be monetized, but I try to stick with those things. So let's listen to what they say. It's very interesting that he just spewed that out. All right. No, I did not just do that. Hold on. Sorry. Let's get this guy. All right. Perfectly.
Our quadruple murder suspect. I'm sure they were and they couldn't say anything. And they're watching from a bird, right?
The traffic was going
Yes, like a
fast.
Cessna flying overhead. It's a hawk waiting to swoop down in case anything happens, in effect. And they've been building this case for 6 weeks, and they're finally getting closer. And they think the whole case is going to be blown apart before they've connected all the dots. And
there's too much traffic, guys.
With a sense of panic. But discipline
you know
rate.
what, Howard? They were right. And this is no offense to Indiana at all. But I understand where the FBI is coming from, and you know how much I hate the feds. But that said, Chris McDonough joining me, Director Cold Case Foundation, former homicide detective, and star of The Interview Room on YouTube. Chris, if they had stopped Kohberger and he nutted up and they arrested him or sped off, anything could have happened because we can't predict what Kohberger's going to do. Just like his father, he had no idea what his son might do. We would never have gotten the evidence that we got when they finally got home to the Pocono area. Remember, they were surveilled. They went in finally, or in the early morning hours, they catch him, I think in his shorts or underwear, wearing plastic gloves and separating his trash from everybody else's trash. And they see him go throwing trash in the neighbor's receptacle. None of that would have happened if local authorities had arrested Kohberger for a traffic violation, or if Kohberger spun out and brought about his own arrest. So I understand why they were worried.
Yeah, and absolutely. And not only that, if you remember, this officer is leaning in. So if he would have seen anything in plain view, what Doc Morgan was talking about, any blood transfer or anything like that, well, the clock starts ticking right then and there. If this officer starts diving into this traffic stop, that you may have this fugitive task force surveillance team, overhead and behind them going, hey, what the heck is going on here? So, and quite frankly, I hate to say it, but I've seen this as well as many others numerous times where, this thing could have gone south really fast, but fortunately they cut them loose and they were able to connect those dots.
We wait as justice unfolds. I want to thank all of our guests for.
Yes, we want to say what an amazing panel that was, you guys. I got through it in 2 hours and 52 seconds, and I appreciate every single one of you. It's interesting to have a crowd of, right now we got 122. Let's say we had probably 130 at the most. It's a very interesting night, but you guys helped me out. You kept me pumped up with this. I really want this case to see full justice, you guys. And I think when I present this stuff to you and I have you guys on the side of him being guilty, I think it's presenting enough to you, and I think it's going to present enough to the jury to get a conviction and hopefully the death penalty, you guys, because he deserves the death. If he did this, he deserves the death penalty. All right, you guys, I love you. Petty, thank you for all the hard work that you put in. Bree, thank you for all the hard work. All the mods, thank you for everything you do every day. And thank you all the crime crew. I'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Eastern. I'll be here with Toddy and Rebecca Mitchello. Good night, you guys. Love you. Have a good Friday evening. Mwah.
Guilty of crime.
I want to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my content, please share this video, like, and subscribe. You can also follow me over at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, or Gmail. If you'd like to donate to my channel, you can use Cash App or Venmo or PayPal. Thank you very much in advance. Guilty of crime.
Are you guilty?